Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of JKLMedia, your podcast where three friends sit around and talk about stuff. How's that that's a description, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Today we have Lou.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our reality.
Yes, I am Jesse Jackson, and leading our discussion is the podcast mom, Karen.
Hello, everyone.
Take it away.
Alrighty, so these are two amazing episodes of Devs. We have Devs episode 5 is the title, which means so much, and episode 6. I think episode 5 is really, I know it's a little more than halfway through the series, but I think it's the one that gets people the most interested to see what happens. I hate clip episodes. Okay, I hate them. But they found such a great way to give us backstory by using these little clips. It's visually interesting. It's interesting that Katie is involved without saying a single word in that part of the episode. And I just love that we see their flashbacks, but they're also like multiple reality flashbacks. It's just so amazing, in my opinion. So let's hear what you guys think about that aspect of the episode.
Yeah, I love these two episodes. I really feel like the story is starting to click, and I really empathize with show creators nowadays, because unless you're on a network that specifically tells you I'm dropping one episode at a time, or we're going to publish like a regular major network, right? Over the air network, we're going to do this. A lot of streaming services give you all of it, and most people binge. And so therefore you need to, one of my complaints when I'm doing a Doctor Who rewatch is I'm watching all 4 classic episodes in a row, and I go, well, they're repeating the same thing over and over again because they had to. It was once a week.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, I think some of these series that we talk about would be better served if we were binging it all in a row, but because of our, doing only a couple episodes at a time. So these are the two we're talking about today are the ones where I really connected emotionally with the story. Intellectually, I was enjoying the series. But now then emotionally, because of these 2 episodes, I really like them. And I like the creative use of the storytelling. I also, based on our last discussion, Karen, where you explained that the reason why we got a clean vision of the past is that they, in my words, the way I think of it is, they took all these 8 or 9 different audio tracks that have been recorded, merge them together into one file, right? So,
yeah.
And so I think they did a beautiful version of showing how timey-wimey, where you see them, all the different actors in that bedroom or in the living room and all the different places, was really, really like, and I may be jumping ahead, like the car wreck. You see there's another version where everything ends up fine.
Right. Yeah, you see really, like 8 versions of most everything where, someone's sitting here. And especially the way they do the bedroom / living room of Lily, where they pan through the apartment.
Yes.
And you see different aspects of each multiverse.
Yeah. And I had to rewatch that 2 or 3 times because I tend to sometimes, my phone's blinking. And so I'm watching the episode and I'm checking Twitter or something, and I'm not hearing any dialogue, and all of a sudden I go, wait a minute, let me put down the phone.
What did I miss?
Yeah, what did I watch all this? So yeah, really, really connecting, and I think is my word of the day. I connected to the characters this time. Our big bad isn't our big bad anymore. I feel his empathy. And Kevin Smith has once said the reason they never have him do a superhero show is because his superhero show would just be 2 people sitting talking.
Yeah.
That is my favorite. In a lot of ways, those are my favorite scenes. And we get a lot of just 2 people talking
Yep.
in these episodes. And that rolling the pin, jumping ahead is just a beautiful metaphor. And everything has a reason.
Right. So now you know how I could explain what they were doing, because they actually go into...
Yeah, no, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to join you in your word of the podcast is connection. I totally agree. Intellectually and emotionally, they finally connected and merged together. I mentioned last podcast that the Lily character, I was finally starting to feel some empathy for her, because that scene where she faked having a freak out so that she could get the files from the Kenton's office was when I said, okay, now I'm starting to buy this character. And in this episode, the use of the multiple realities and the ability to go back and fill in backstory at the same time, the scenes with Lily when she's younger with her father playing
Go.
It's
Go.
And they're talking about the fact that she has the ability to think several moves ahead, made me understand why they chose her as a protagonist of this series, because of that ability, which is what is needed for this scenario, is somebody that can think several moves ahead. And in the later episodes, I'm sure that ability is going to come into play, resolving the climax of this miniseries. So I'm really into that character now. Curiously enough, at the same time, the character that I was most interested in, Kenton, he's starting to go down on my scale of interest, because and maybe there'll be more layers to it, but he's just turning into the default bad guy. And so he's not as interesting anymore. And I have a feeling that he's going to be the wild card that forces the climax to happen because of his insecurities. And we'll see how that plays out. And the other thing that this episode is interestingly done is it's also elevated Katie to quite a higher level, where she's, if not equal, maybe above Forrest in terms of what's her end game. She's obviously got something going on, much more than just a professional desire to see something through. So there was a lot of cool things in here. And we take for granted now shots where somebody has a double and they talk to each other in the same scene, right? Because it's still a static shot. I mean, when the original Star Trek did it with Kirk and things like that, it was cool, but you could see that they really had to block it, and now it's become fairly seamless. But this merges that shot with like the Matrix bullet time shots, and they have these panning shots, which once the camera starts moving and you've got multiple people in the same room, that's a lot of computing power is being put to use there. So it was really cool to see how somebody's life could change in the small details, but in general, their overall flow is still really the same. The only shot that I was really thinking about was the one where Katie gets pissed off at the lecturer. And it was interesting to see that actor she's from CIS Nevada, I think. Like, she's in that show, and she's been in a lot of British top shows too. She's the lady in the wheelchair. But when Katie walks out of that, and you see her taking all those different paths out of the lecture hall, and one, she slams her briefcase on the steps, and then the other, she goes left or right, or she stops. It was interesting that they only showed one universe where Forrest went and talked to her. Now, I don't know if that was deliberate, or if that was just saying, all these other things are cool, but we just need to show you this one path because this is the path that the series is on. So I thought that was really cool. So yeah, the connections to the series have been fully put into place now, intellectually and emotionally. I'm invested in the Lily character. I'm very curious about the Katie character. The Forrest character, I'm not really sure. But the Kenton character is going down for me now. I hope I'm wrong, that he's not just going to become like the plain bad guy. And is it Jamie, her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend?
Yeah, Jamie.
He's the nice guy. Like he's self-sacrificing in that, and he would give up his life for Lily. I just don't think she appreciates him in the way that he should be appreciated. So I feel really sorry for that guy.
Yeah.
But so I'm totally into it. The technology is really cool now, and it's scary at the same time. So
right.
It's the series has really gotten it hooks into me now. It's too bad took more than half of it to get to that point.
Yeah. But you were intrigued before then,
Yes,
which is
intellectually.
Yeah.
Intellectually, yeah.
Yes, and I agree that the connection, and I agree with you that scene where it's very cleverly done, where all the different, she's on the steps of that, and I've talked about, I really love that actress. And I felt like she was very robotic. In fact, I even mentioned, like, is she like an android or something? And you're like, no, she's human. So Katie really comes alive with this, and the idea that, yes, we are lovers. Does that think you worse than me? I don't care. Yeah. And I'm going to echo you. Hope there's a payoff, but right now Keaton is just like, you see him in the car. Oh, that's how we're going to play it. It's like you're almost twirling your mustache.
Yeah.
Because everyone else is really nuanced and different. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'll say this much about Kenton. He's gotten to the point where he's almost unraveling.
Yeah. I think that's a fair statement, right?
Yeah. And if that makes him a little flatter as a character, I mean, I think he only has one motivation now, to save his own ass.
Yeah.
Whereas before I felt he was totally loyal to Forrest.
Right.
So
exactly
it's
right.
Changed.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's properly been
communicated
or communicated.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think, okay, I'm not going to say any more about it.
Okay. I know he's worried about being caught killing people on that, but that's the line of work he was in. So I don't really know why that's all of a sudden become like such a big deal to him.
I think he just sees his future coming down the pike. In this instance, you don't want me to kill Lily, but Lily can out us. So I just think that's where he is at the moment. He sees it threatening him, and before he felt invincible.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, right, like, that scene where I'm not going to prison is like, okay, but do you realize that, don't put them in a box? He's thinking I'm the one that does the dirty work, so there's no way they're going to do anything wrong with me,
right?
Because who would they have do the dirty work? But yeah, that I do find him a little more likable as a character because of you bullying it. It is unraveling in front of him, and he is not sure what to do next. So yeah, that makes him a little bit less of a caricature. One note, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
A little less.
Yeah, because when that is happening to you, it is hard to show the other things that you might be able to do, right? Like, you can't think ahead of that. So yeah. that's well said.
And the other aspect that I touched on briefly that I just want to reemphasize is the creepy voyeuristic aspect of this whole, because all these scenes that we're seeing, Katie's watching through the machine. So that's really creepy. And that makes her a much more interesting character because she is not playing by the rules that she set out for everybody else.
No.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, that will take us into the next episode. So now we know why she won't allow anyone to look into the future.
Right.
That's the reason. They hit a brick wall and they can never go past that wall. She wants to know what's going to happen. She's very invested in it, but she doesn't want anyone else to know that they can't get past. Number one, because that she's the lead developer, and she doesn't want anyone to know that she might have failed in her forward guessing thing. It also mirrors that first episode where Sergey shows them the little worm thing that I think it's like some weird organism, and that it unravels after a certain amount of time, that he can't go any further than that.
Yeah.
And when I watched this the first time, it clicked immediately for me that, well, that's why they have a rule to not look into the future, because otherwise, what harm would it do, really? I mean, it's not good to look into the future. We've learned that from all the shows we watch. But yeah, it's because she senses that not only is this going to be an earth-shattering development, but it also exposes that there's a flaw in her program. let's talk about that. Let's talk about the flashbacks we see with the machine, where they're actually seeing like the machine showing all the different realities and how it bloomed into this big predictor thing. Let's talk about all that.
So my first thought as I'm watching this and she talks about it, I'm going, well, the machine is going to break. That's why you can't see any further in the future. It's not that the world is going to end or something's going to happen. Something happens to your quantum physics thingamabob that it's going to explode, it's going to break, it's going to end. And that's why it can't predict any further, because it's going to break down. That was my first thought.
Okay.
I don't know if that is the case. I just, that's where I went with that. Such a beauty of Lily and them sitting across and having the discussion, and everything can be explained. Well, children getting leukemia. I didn't say it was a good explanation. I didn't say it was a fair explanation. I'm saying it is an explanation. There is reasons. Is really well done. And then the whole, we can sit out here in silence, but it will make it go faster. Them talking and this, I think you're gone your way. Fair enough. And like, oh yeah, you're that guy. Yeah, I am. Yeah, that's kind of bad. And then them playing Frisbee. It's just really, really I love those conversations. That was just beautiful.
And did you catch that this right here, this picture of Amaya is her waiting to catch a Frisbee?
I did not catch that, but I love that.
That hand
perfect.
thing is, she does that.
Okay.
Which is weird. I mean, why pick that?
Yeah.
But that is one of his prevailing memories of her when you see him going through all that in his mind. And the crash that, like, he's right there for all of it is, I mean, that explains so much about his character.
It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think being on the phone with his wife when it happens, there's a part of you that is always going to blame yourself for that.
Yeah. I mean, can you think of a worse scenario, right? Where he says, yes, I know we can have this discussion in just a few minutes. And he's walking out and you see, and you hear it, you see it. So 2 of the 5 senses, right? It is just, you immediately empathize with this character and like, oh my goodness, how does this make you not be a little bit, I don't want to use the word crazy, but insane, right?
Obsessed.
Like,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about, I'm sorry I got out of that, but we're talking about what? Katie and looking into the future and stuff like that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a little conflicted on that. I agree with Jesse's initial assessment. That's where my headset is at too, but the ability to look at things clearly didn't really come until the previous episode. So how clearly could they see going forward and know that that's something to do with the events that are happening now? Because it could have been a deficiency in the current system. It might be easier to look back into the past because we saw I think it was sort of like the initial scene where they finally got the machine to be able to show them the past is when they're doing that deep scan of the mouse and all those objects and that. And just the amount of processing power needed to do that, like they were going like to these deep microscopic levels and drilling down, and they finally got like as much data as they felt they needed to have because then Forrest says now expand the focus, and they started to go out from the room, and then you can see depiction of Forrest's face in the window and all that. So they have all that data going back into the past, but that data is there for the past, right? Because it exists. Going forward into the future, you don't know what matter is going to be still there because things are being consumed and altered and whatnot. And I guess the same would happen in the past, but at least you have something concrete to start with, and so you can project backwards from a more stable point. Going forward, we can go down rabbit holes with the physics here, but I didn't quite understand how she was so focused on whatever her goal is without really having this technology locked down in a proper state. And now that she's got this ability to see things a lot clearly, but the problem is right now they're using this new formula from the boy
Lyndon,
who's based on multi-world theories. So how can she know which path is the path that's for our reality? And she's operating like she's working towards some goal, very confident of what's going to happen, but the uncertainty principle, she hasn't been able to get rid of that yet. So she's acting like this is how it's going to be. And I thought she would have had a rethinking of things, because unless she's only seeing the one path that she's watching, but we're being shown all these multiple paths. How does she know which path is the path that, but again, I guess because they're showing all these minor variations, but they still come back to the same end result. So I guess the variations aren't that important. See, I'm talking myself.
Well, no, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's the same thing that now that you mention that, well, how could you ever see the future? Because unless this is predetermined, right? There is predestination, you know, and
which is what she must be basing everything on, because
right. And so, but the
idea,
idea,
she's a determinist 100%.
Yeah. And I'm in the middle of, among other things, I'm finally getting a chance to watch Foundation, right? Which is, and the idea that we can predict society as a whole, but not individuals. This is the idea that I could almost make okay, let's say the machine doesn't break. There's too many variables. In other words, I can't predict any further than this point, because no matter how much math I have, how much brain power or computing power I have, there's too many different variables to go forward to show you. Now, if you want to put in code that says blank ends up quitting his job, okay, well now then that extra piece of code, I can go another 2 or 3 months in advance. But it is.
Yeah, but see, her thing is they don't go another 2 or 3 months in advance. As they move along their timeline, they just get closer to this endpoint. It doesn't push out.
Okay. So yeah.
So that's why she's so interested in that. She wants to know why they're stopping there. Because otherwise they would see a year and 10 months in the future every day. Only thing.
Okay, got it.
So,
good point. Yeah.
Yeah, she's becoming obsessed with this endpoint.
Yeah.
Now it's only hours that they can't see into the future past then. You know, it's not working the way she wants it to work. It's not looking into 10 months from now. It's not looking into a year and a half from now, where they can look back to caveman times in the past. She realizes there's going to be that wall that they hit, but she was hoping the wall would move as time moves.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
I think really that's why she's getting obsessed with it.
Yeah. I agree. Her whole thing is like, because she has that conversation with Lily about, there's no such thing as a random event. So I understand that she's got that mindset, but we see all these alternate realities. So I'm still like, she might be, okay, we're locked into this particular timeline, but we're seeing all these other timelines. So she's somehow, I don't know how she's reconciling those two different
mindsets,
constructs.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I assume because with the previous episodes, we had the question about, well, why is using this new equation that makes everything clear changing which reality that we're looking at? I assume that they're going to answer this question as well. Maybe the pen demonstration was meant to do that, but I still need some more clarity about that. But the endpoint is what Jesse said initially, is that, or maybe the insinuation from the show is to us is that reality is going to end, and so Katie thinks reality is going to end, but I'm not sure that's what's going to happen. I just think that whatever Lily is going to do is going to cause a new reality to form that the machine is just not capable of projecting, either because it doesn't exist yet or because the rules or the quantum mechanics of it are different enough that the machine can't handle that. Or
Right.
maybe the machine gets wiped out in the process. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that the story is going to come down to and I hope just putting it in a cliche way, is where love conquers all or something like that, where we have this thing like in Fringe, where at the end, it's the feelings between the father and son, or husband and wife, or whatever,
Yeah.
is what overcomes physics and reality and creates something that we as human beings like to believe is the reason why our human journeys are so important. It's not because of what we do, it's or see or experience. It's what the connections that we make with other people is what is the important thing in the end. So I don't know if the show's going down that line. They'll probably do it in an elegant way that I'm really looking forward to seeing. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, this is the tough. Intellectually, I'm engaged, but it's tough at the same time because I'm fascinated to see where they're going to go. Because at the end, I'll go, okay, now I've got the whole picture. Now I can digest this whole series better. But right now, it's like a mystery box that I just not sure what's going to come out of it. But
yeah, I agree.
But the important thing is the emotional connection is there now, which was missing before. So
right. And I will point out also that when they first started the machine, the whole premise behind it was to see multiple realities.
Yeah.
And then how did Forrest get to this place where he doesn't want the multiple realities anymore? Which is essentially what the machine was doing at the beginning. You know, you see the dead mouse, the live mouse, the cheese being eaten, the cheese staying alone, the sugar cube. You see all different timelines in that beginning. And now it is verboten. There's no timelines. I don't want timelines. So there's that difference as well. So we know that he and Katie are trying very hard to concentrate on this timeline. And again, I know it's esoteric that I am drawing this conclusion. It's not telling me 100%, but I feel like there's a way to point the machine somewhere. And again, can you point it to one fixed point, and that's why you get more information, because you're not allowing it to look at the big picture. You're making it point at a certain thing, which might not be your timeline. It might be some other timeline. So yeah, that's one of the things that intrigued me, is that the machine started out doing one thing and they changed it to do another thing.
And I still seeing the mouse come back alive, right? The end game.
You're seeing two different mice, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
But is the end game him getting his wife and daughter back? And one of the questions I had is what happened to the mother, right? And so that answer gets explained.
Right.
But it raises another question. Why is Forrest so involved with bringing his daughter back, but his wife seems to be a non-issue? Like, I don't.
Right.
That's a great question.
Why is he obsessed with Amaya? I agree.
Yeah.
Why isn't it both?
With the phone call, we see that he is very in love with his wife.
Yes.
Why is he concentrating on Amaya? We haven't been told that yet.
Is there because he now has a new relationship, and so he's kind of,
I don't know, but
yeah,
that might be part of it.
Yeah.
I hated that Katie and Forrest were together. I just thought she was a very cold character, and I liked her being cold. But the one saving grace is that she doesn't care about him as much as he cares about her. She cares that he needs someone, and she wants to be that person. But I don't think she's in love with him.
Ah, okay.
So, I mean, they do say at the end of this episode, I'm in like with you.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm much more in like with you than you are with me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's also a parallel to Lily and Jamie, that Jamie is way more in love with Lily than Lily is with him.
Yeah.
Instead of, after Kenton tortures him, breaks his arm, tries to drown him, he doesn't just run. He goes to get Lily and hides out in Napa, right up the street, essentially, from San Francisco, and regroups to try and make some sort of a plan. Because otherwise he could just be gone. He could bug out.
I do love it. Doesn't serve there's no reason this isn't important for the story, but the whole idea, oh, what happened to your finger? Oh, your goon broke it after he tried to drown me. Oh,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah,
Essentially.
exactly. Like, oh, okay.
That's another aspect of especially episode 6 that I really liked, is that it kept subverting my expectations. Because like you said, I thought Jamie and Lily were going to go on the lam. Instead, they go back.
Yeah.
When they get to Forrest's house, I expected Lily and Forrest to have this big conversation, but it was Lily and Katie.
Yeah.
So that was really well done, and kept me off balance as well, which I enjoyed, because most times you know the beats of an episode when you're watching it. So that was all well done. And as Jesse mentioned earlier, those two guys playing Frisbee out in the street was funny. But the thing with the pen, that was really well done. And Katie just coming out and answering her questions and saying, yeah, Kenton killed Sergei, and
yeah,
all this stuff was just it was just laid out on the table. So like all the questions that you have, they kept on answering them, and then you're going, okay, so what now? And then when Katie brought up this whole thing about not being able to see past a certain point in the future, no, is this an end of the world scenario? And I'm going, no, this show would not do something straightforward. So
right.
I'm really looking forward.
Agree.
I don't know what they're doing exactly, except I still believe it has something to do with bringing the daughter back to life. Why not the wife too? I don't know. But so, it's all interesting stuff for sure.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this. And just, I would not have caught it. I would not have there's too much good data out there, content. And so I'm really glad you brought this up, because it is both intellectually challenging and fun to watch, but it also has been really interesting to see these take on these actors doing different type of characters, with the exception of maybe the guy who plays the bad guy.
Kenton,
he's always,
he's always a bad guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and we had one little side story with Lyndon breaking into Stuart's RV.
Yes.
And trying to get back onto the devs team.
Yeah.
I liked, Lou, you mentioned in an earlier podcast that you weren't sure what their relationship was, and then all of a sudden you realize they're closer than it looks. And we see that here, that Lyndon thinks that Stuart is a safe place. Stuart's RV is a safe place. Right. He's risking a lot to see Stuart. And we also see that Stuart has his own Pete.
Yeah.
He gives the beer to the homeless guy.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was funny that here you go. And then he goes into the RV, and I knew something was up with the RV when I saw this. And then you see Lyndon in the background, like a horror movie, like he's hanging from the ceiling or something. But yeah, he's there to talk to Stuart, to see if Stuart can advocate for him, that it's his life's work. So you see almost every character being obsessed with something. Lily's obsessed with finding out about Sergei's death. Jamie's obsessed with Lily. Forrest is upset with trying to get his daughter back. Katie's obsessed with seeing what's beyond this point. I mean, everybody has an obsession. So seeing that scene between Stuart and Lyndon, I thought was super interesting. And the fact that he says Forrest isn't a genius, that this whole episode, I think, is putting Forrest in that I'll just go along with whatever as long as I get my end game kind of thing. That's his deal. He's a passive participant in everything. He's not the brains behind all of it. He's the money.
Right.
So yeah, what do you think about the relationship between Stuart and Lyndon in this episode?
Well, I like it. It's good to see because it's that nice dynamic of old and new, right? Like I was wondering why they were showing the scene though, and I kept on thinking to myself, from where I'm sitting, these two characters' part in the story is basically played out. So unless there's something that requires them to change something that's going to happen in the last two episodes, this scene is not really necessary. So obviously they still have a part to play, whether it's Stuart's going to sneak Lyndon back into the facility or whatever, I don't know. But much like Kenton has a part to play, and I think that he's going to be the person that brings Lily back to the devs place against her will, because I don't think she's going to willingly go there, especially after what Katie's told her. So it's interesting from that perspective. And as an actor, if I was Nick Offerman and I got this script for that episode 6 and says, okay, now I'm going to get to play the big scenes here, and then he finds out that this part's been given to somebody else, that must have been tough. Or maybe disconcerting, because I've been set up as the big player in this series, and now I'm being pushed off to the side. So I found that all quite interesting.
I did too, and I don't know where they're going to be in the storyline. I also don't know the homeless guy. Is he there for more than comedy relief? I do love okay, man, I'm not talking to you, just like our agreement. Okay, you just talk to me.
Yeah.
But that was funny. I like that a lot. And so I talked about last time that with my personality, someone gives me FU money, $10 million, go. I'm going to go, and I will find another thing to challenge me.
I ain't looking back.
Yeah. But this scene gave a better, at least from my perspective, the drive. The reason why I still want to be there is it's the hunt. It is the working. I want to be part of that. And I can't go away. Lyndon is like, I need to do this. And very, very cool.
Was that it for Lyndon and Stuart?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I like seeing him. I do like him. I could buy you a better RV.
Yeah, I don't want a better RV.
Yeah, it is a pretty beat up. It is a very beat up Airstream. It's like there could be better Airstream.
Yeah, and we know Stuart makes good money.
Right. Yes.
That whole Amaya, every Amaya employee makes good money. Oh, and I wanted to also make sure to let you know that I don't know if you caught it because it's hard to catch, is that Sergey and Lily met in the Amaya cafeteria.
Yeah.
That's where they met. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's an important point. He didn't go out of his way to search someone that worked at Amaya in order to get an in. This was just some random happenstance that he happened to fall for someone that worked there when he was there for a different purpose. So,
but there are no random happenstances.
That's right. Yes,
that's all I'm saying.
It does give a little extra depth to him.
Mm-hmm.
That seeing this, it is very creative. Often people will complain, and I'm thinking specifically of Brent and tuning into Sci-Fi TV, of like, we don't need flashbacks. We don't need just tell the story, right? I think this works because of the way this is, the timey-wimey nature of this. This is a very creative way they've told the story that works so well for me. Yeah.
And I mean, the whole reason they're seeing things is to see things in the past through the machine.
Yeah.
And so to see that play out also to us, I think was really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
The big thing with flashbacks is that they have to have relevance to what's happening currently in the story that we're watching. If they're just can be used as filler, then I agree that backstory stuff can be quite boring. But like in the specifically like for Lita, to show that she's able to think ahead a couple of moves in a board game, and that's probably a talent that she uses in her day-to-day job, that's an important backstory point that was vital to the series. Otherwise, if we would just, and I'm much more of a show me, don't tell me kind of person. If somebody would just say, "Oh, she's got the ability to think several moves ahead," well, okay, big deal. But if the fact that this was a connection with her father on an emotional level as well, I think is really important. So I do think that backstory, a lot of times we don't even know it's backstory, but it's what it makes us understand why characters behave the way they do. And of course, some shows really love to subvert that. Like if you watch Lost, you would think of one character as a certain way, but then you would see their backstory and it would totally flip your perception, good or bad, of that person. So I don't think that's the intent here. I think it's just more to make us understand why these people are the players that they are in this series. So I'm also curious, because the both of you watched Midnight Mass, which had a lot of monologues. For Karen, it's on a kind of a flip side because you saw this before you saw Midnight Mass, right?
Correct.
And for Jesse, you saw Midnight Mass first. So do you think that watching that show made you appreciate the monologues in this series, or did you find them easier to sit through because of that? Because these last two episodes had a lot of long scenes when Jesse said you love those kind of scenes.
Yeah,
is that
I
true
do.
Before Midnight Mass?
Yes. Yeah. This has always been when we've talked about whether, especially, I talk a lot about this when I was on Wendy Small Council, where two people talking, character developments on Game of Thrones was always my favorite part of the episode. Yeah. So I think that just stands by this, to use the cliches, this episode of the dual discussions, at the table and then at the porch, were my wheelhouse. I mean, this is exactly the kind of episode that I love because you're giving us answers. Yep. And the beauty of giving us these answers that still leads to more questions is a sign of great storytelling. Yeah. And so, yeah, I really like that.
Yeah. I love monologues if they're done right.
Yeah. Right.
If they're not, then it's interminable. But I will say that I am appreciating this show a little bit more this time through. Number one, because I didn't have anyone to talk with it, Yeah. And so talking to other people and getting their perspective on it is really adding a new layer for me to this show. When I first watched it, my mind was blown at the end of every episode. And now hearing you guys talk about it, and you're picking up stuff and you're asking the right questions, and sometimes you're asking the wrong questions. I mean, it makes me see things in a different way. Yeah. And I'm also catching stuff now that I didn't catch before, subtleties that I didn't really appreciate the first time through. Yeah. I didn't rewatch this. This is my second time watching it. So, I mean, I do know what happens. I remember it, but yeah, I mean, it's only from 2020. So it's not like I'm remembering something from 10 years ago.
Yeah. It's always an interesting dynamic, I think, for people that watch stuff like we watch it probably a little more intensely than your average viewer, and you've guys fallen into this situation with all the shows that you've done, and I know you probably struggled with more on Castle than other shows because there's a certain type of viewing where you're just doing it at a surface level, like if you go to the movie, you want the big action scenes, you want the big special effects scenes. But like in Lord of the Rings, like what are the moments that you remember the most? It's those conversations between Gandalf and Frodo in the Mines of Moria when he's talking about what to do with the time that you have that's been given to you. Those are the moments that stick with me, and I'm pretty sure that's the truth for you. But if you talk to the average moviegoer, they're just going to talk about, there was a great big battle scene with the orcs and Minas Tirith or and whatnot, and that's what they will talk about. But maybe subconsciously they don't even realize it, but it's those small beats that really are pulling them in. At least that's what I like to think, because I know there are people that are just going to watch it on the surface level and not take anything out of it. But once you start diving into things, as a critic of music will tell you, or something like that, you get into another level where the average person just doesn't care to go. And that's always a struggle that you have when you're talking about these types of things with other people outside of the people that are interested in listening to podcasts or even getting together and talking about them in the first place. So
agreed.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah. And yes, we had that trouble with Castle.
Yes.
Seeing things that I nitpicked about because it was the third time watching it and that I had to watch it carefully instead of, with a show like that I watch more casually.
Yeah.
Where you're not supposed to pick up on inconsistencies because you're only going to watch it once. You're going to watch it by surface levels. There were times when I think we were way too nitpicky on Castle.
We probably were. And I also one of the things that I've really enjoyed about The Rookie is, even though I would love to get the gang back together and just do a general catch up and talk about it, but I just get to watch it. I mean, it's Sunday nights. It's a good way for me to end my weekend. I think one of the good things about the show is they have figured out a way to, Castle did not expand the cast as well. They kept it about Stana and Nathan and then you had minor characters. The thing about the Rookie is they have expanded the whole cast where they all have storylines and they all go through things better, which I'm sure if I'm Nathan Fillion, I'm very happy because that means less work for me and I'm still number one on the call sheet, right? and it makes for a better show.
All the credit with less work.
So I mean, I know that sometimes you'll hear stories about if you are the main character on a show, you're there almost every episode when you're the lead, and that makes for long days and a lot of pulls. So I agree.
And it's not like that with devs either.
No.
I don't think there's a clear lead unless you count Lily as our protagonist, but there's other characters that are just as important in this show.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just want to reiterate the point you made, Jesse. There's like, we all have things like you just mentioned the Rookie. We have like comfort food viewing stuff, and that's, I definitely didn't want to come off being snobby that saying everything that we have to watch has to be great art. But I mean, I love to watch Maximum Overdrive by Stephen King. I know it's a terrible movie, but I just get a hoot out of it. It's just something about it that just tickles my funny bone, and I just can't help it. And we used to watch The Big Bang Theory, and a lot of people didn't like that show, but I just thought it was funny, and I didn't get fussed about whether or not nerds were being portrayed in a negative manner or anything. I just found it funny. But you did.
Same thing.
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, and like I love the CBS show Ghosts. I mean, and there's no depth in there at all. It's just funny characters, and it makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Alan Tudyk Resident Alien. Is just a really fun show. So
and that's the same like with Only Murders in the Building.
Oh, I love that show.
Steve Martin and Martin Short.
It's on my list of things to watch.
You gotta watch it.
Yeah.
What's the girl's name? The singer? Selena Gomez, is that it?
Yeah.
It's just cozy murder story, but I just love the mugging, especially from Martin Short. I think he's just hilarious.
He's great. That show is amazing for what it is, I think. And see, my comfort food, and judge me all you want, is reality TV. And it has to be
I'm judging.
Yeah, it has to be good reality TV. Like, I am a sucker for reality TV
such as
that you have to have talent. Not just like the Kardashians or whatever. Like, I like The Voice, and I like watching America's Got Talent because it's interesting. It's people showing their gifts.
But what's that show where all the people live in the house together?
No, I don't watch Big Brother. No,
Big Brother, that kind
not
of stuff,
for me. No. Okay. And back in the day, The Mole, because there's like an element of like playing chess almost to win. So I have particular taste when it comes to reality TV, but it's my thing that I can put on. I don't have to worry about it. I just put it on and it's in the background or whatever, and I get to hear the singers and I get to root for someone, and that's my comfort food as far as TV goes. But there's shows as well that I watch like that, but I don't have to watch reality 2 times in order to enjoy it.
But in closing, all I'll say is we live in great times that I can now, after this podcast, go watch these next 2 episodes of this, and I've got all the other episodes of The Sandman to watch because I've only watched one. So it's just an embarrassment of riches right now.
Can we do a JKLMedia on The Sandman? Just one.
I think
a one-off would be good.
I think that'd be fun. I don't know if I'd want to go through but an
overall talk about it.
I think that'd be great. I'd love that. That'd be fun.
Because again, I would love to have
because it's rare when something is adapted so well. So
exactly,
I think that's great.
Good deal. Like Maximum Overdrive. The adaptation is amazing.
So very nice. All right. Any other questions you want to ask us, Karen?
No, I think we've touched on everything. I think we got more in depth on some of the stuff than I thought we were going to get, which is great. So I loved it. I love that you guys are invested. I can't wait to talk about the last 2 episodes with you guys. I can't wait for you guys to see them, for one thing, because there's some huge revelations in the last 2 episodes.
Ooh, good.
I just hope this whole thing hasn't turned out to be a simulation, like the Matrix or something.
I'm not going to say anything about anything that's coming.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
I'm just saying that there's stuff that's going to blow your mind in the last.
I'm sure
episodes.
because
All right.
it's consistently done that so far. So.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I am. Very good.
I'm thinking particularly of one thing that I think you're going to see it and you're going to say, oh no, he did not just do that. So,
All right.
All right.
Well, good. So now that
Kenton.
I'm debating on, do I finish Sandman or do I get this done?
Watch Devs, and then you can watch Devs again next Saturday, and then you can spend the week watching the Sandman. Even though I watched it all on Friday, the whole thing.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. All right. So, Lou, if someone wants to reach you, how can they?
You can find me on YouTube at Lou's Reviews, where you will find this along with the Midnight Mass as the other JKLMedia one-offs that we've done, as well as all our Babylon 5, Stephen King and writer episodes. And on Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sitzma or at S King Podcast.
All right. Karen?
Yay. You can find me on Twitter at Aleveria, Aleveria. Also, my Slack. I mean, not Slack. What's it called?
Discord?
My gaming thing. No.
Twitch?
Steam.
Okay.
Well, Twitch is at Aleveria as well, but
okay.
I don't do anything there. But yeah, Steam, if you want to play Lost Ark with me. And you can find a link in my bio on Twitter to my blog.
All right. If you want to send us emails about anything that we're talking or suggestions on what we should cover, jklb5podcast@gmail.com. We get a lot of great feedback on our Babylon 5 discussions. We have not gotten a lot of feedback about these one-offs, partly because we dropped them. And so it's after the fact that I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, are they really going to go back and cover? But we would love your feedback and thoughts on Midnight Mass, Devs, or we are going to do Station 11 is going to be our next one off. We are talking about doing a Stephen King book club and picking one of his novels, maybe the new one. We're going to debate on what to do. Yeah, to talk about that. And so we'll go from there. I am at Jesse Jackson DFW. Follow me on Twitter, and you will see I am a ray of positivity and sunshine among the blank storm of Springsteen ticket brouhaha going on. I am the lone voice of the wilderness at times, it feels like. So we'll go from there. Lou, Karen, thank you so much for spending every Sunday morning with me. Just the three of us together. This is a joy, and I appreciate all that you guys do to entertain our listeners and to make me smile.
And I want to thank you guys like 1,000,000% for watching Devs with me. I've really enjoyed, I enjoyed Midnight Mass a lot, but getting to see you guys watch something that I've already watched it's a joy in itself. So
yeah, absolutely.
These Sunday mornings are like what church services were supposed to do for me.
Exactly.
That is my exact thought too.
We worship at the Church of Genre TV.
Yes, indeed. All right.
The human condition. Yeah.
Listeners, go get vaccinated, go get boosted, and let's be kind to each other because that's how we're going to get through this. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, listeners. And we will talk to you next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And scene.
The proceeding has been a JKL Media production.